Hey everyone, welcome to Stuff I Never Learned from the Schoolbook. If you're looking at the beard, it must be Monday night, 7 p.m. Central, 8 Eastern, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific, 2 out in Hawaii, 6 a.m. tomorrow morning in Indonesia, and anywhere between 9 a.m. and noon out in Australia. So welcome everybody, welcome to the show. If you don't know who I am, my name is Tom Springer, and I am the host of the show, Stuff I Never Learned from the Schoolbook. If you are a return member, such as this person here. What's up, Stuart? How you doing, brother? Welcome back. We have on a great show. I'm going to bring everybody in at once. I actually have 3 people today I'm just going to let them go on and start talking. But I'm going to go ahead and bring in Sarah, Troy, and Darlene with me, and everyone say hi to everybody else. So there's Sarah, there's Troy, and there's Darlene. So here's my group of people tonight, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm glad you all were able to make it. I normally tell people how I met you guys. Actually, what's funny is that, Darlene, this is my very first time meeting you.
Mm-hmm.
I had a very, very brief introduction from Sarah on who you were and what you do. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Sarah, I met because like a lot of my guests or people that I become friends with is you were a requested, or it was a friend suggestion. And a lot of times I get really good energy off of friend suggestions, or I don't. And I got a really strong energy off of, so I clicked on you and said, okay, I want to be friends with you. And to my surprise, you were nice enough to say, yep, come on in. This is my wife saying hello to everybody right here below. If you can't see.
Hello.
She's keeping track on everything up top to make sure we're running smoothly. She's kind of my computer admin upstairs to make sure we're not getting hacked or anything else. But so I met you just simply through a friend request, and I was like, well, I really want you on my show. I went out, I do what I normally do. My audience knows I Facebook stalk the heck out of you. And I really liked everything you were putting out there. I loved the energy, and I was like, all right, I got to have Sarah on my show. And then it turns out, Troy, I knew, but I didn't know I knew already. I've been posting to Beyond the Veil for a while now, advertising my show. And then Sarah gave me a little rundown, Troy, of who you were and everything else. And then she said, oh, by the way, he also is the guy that runs Beyond the Veil. And I went, oh, I posted them all the time.
Too funny.
So my show's been posting to you now probably for 6 months, and I don't know if you've ever seen my show pop up, but the advertisements go out once a week to everybody, and that's kind of how I met everybody here. So welcome. If you would, please kind of give a little breakdown of who you are, kind of how you started in the business, if you have any abilities at all that you want to share, anything of the sort. So I don't really care who goes first. I'm going to let you guys go there, and we'll see what happens from there.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay. Hi, no pressure or anything. Nope. Hi, guys. I'm Sarah Sophia. Thank you for obviously joining in tonight. It's always nerve-wracking being on a podcast. It's not my first rodeo, but it is definitely nerve-wracking for sure. So as a young girl, I was seeing and hearing spirit and didn't realize that that's what was happening. And my Aunt Darlene, she was a big help for me for that because she is also a psychic medium. So my parents didn't really know what to do with me at the time. They didn't understand it, where my aunt can come in and say, I know kind of what's happening here. You know, she'll grow through it if that's what she wants to do. So through my childhood, I had imaginary friends. I was talking to things that weren't there. I was seeing black shadows. I saw the man in the hat. And a lot of people go, yeah, right, he doesn't exist. Like, we hear it all the time. But no, I seen him. And the image is so clear still today at 2 to 3 years old. You know, my memory can go back to 2 years old all the way up till now. And I'm almost 33. My memory is incredible. So early, you know, on in my childhood, didn't understand it, just made friends, played, and was a normal kid. Going into elementary school, same thing, just picking up energy, not knowing what it was. It was hard for me to make friends. It was hard for me to understand people because I was sort of kind of learning about who I was as well. And I was a very shy person. I like to just keep to myself. So later on, it just kept happening and it got more intense as it hit high school, but I was scared of the unknown. I was scared of the paranormal. I didn't want to talk to spirits. I didn't want to understand it, even though I was picking things up and was pushing it aside because
Right.
I'm like, heck no, I ain't doing that, right? Then, of course, later on in life, I have 2 kids, and all of a sudden it's heightened. And, you know, as I'm falling to sleep at night, I'm hearing my name being called out by several different voices and tones to the point it's startling me. And the apartment that I was in at the time was very haunted, and I knew that because I could feel the end of my bed being pressed down.
Oh, yeah.
I could hear the dishes being kind of played with, and you know, here I'm rushing, calling my mom, being like, it's happening again, oh my god, I'm freaking out. Or my kids' toys being scattered across the floor, and us waking up to the sound of a Mickey Mouse clubhouse. You know, just weary things. So you know, it eventually, my grandfather, you know, had a vision of him having a massive heart attack. And, you know, I woke up my husband to be like, hey, like something's going to happen to my grandparents and I can't explain it. And I started to cry because I felt it. And a week later, of course, we got the phone call that he did. And I basically just said a prayer to God, the universe, whoever you like to pray to. And I just said, you know, I'll take on this mediumship if you can please let my grandfather stay a little longer for my grandmother, because there's something wrong with her too. So he ended up going into heart surgery. It was a miracle. He shouldn't have been alive. They couldn't believe it. And after that, I have been doing readings. I had opened up some Facebook pages. I've gotten more into the paranormal. I'm a spirit communicator, which I built a portal. And so forth and so on. And I can go on and on and on. So, yeah, I'm now doing investigations and readings and communicating with angels, guides, spirits, you name it. So
very nice. Yeah, that's outstanding.
Okay, I'll go next.
I say Darlene, Troy, whoever's next.
Sure. I'll go next because I started to tie in with Sarah. So I would have to say I was probably about 6 years old when, you know, I knew things that I didn't have any knowledge of, like waking up and telling my oldest sister, 7 years older than me, that my grandfather had died. And she argued with me, no, he hadn't, but she knew because she got the call that morning that he had. But I just woke up and I knew, and I wasn't upset about it, but I was very matter of fact and never even thought about that. But it was very in tune with people's emotions and things. And I think probably when I was about 16 or 17 was the first time I actually had psychic visions. And it was even weird for me, actually. It put me a little over the edge because I was 16 years old coming home from a guy's house that I was dating. He was driving, and I, you know, tired from a long day at school and at his house. And I had this full-on vision of a little black-haired kid running out in front of that truck in about 3 days. And I blurted it out before I even thought about it. And he actually said that he thought I was crazy and he was taking me home for the last time. And then 3 days later, beknownst to me, he had a dentist appointment in a local town. He was late for, so he took a side street, and an Asian child ran out between parked cars right in front of his truck. And he said, your words haunted me enough that I slammed on the brakes. And he says, I didn't hit the child. And so that was when, you know, things started to spiral, because it was hard for me to figure out, you know, what's a psychic vision versus what's a daydream.
Right.
And worries became I didn't know if they were real or not. So I actually closed it down. I was doing a search as to religion and that. So I sort of just said, okay, take it away. Don't want it if I can't manage it. When I got a little bit braver, I sort of opened it up and asked that if it was a gift intended for me and I could do good with it, then I was welcoming it back. And so I really started off more on a psychic journey first. And then I took a metaphysics course, and we did everything from past life regression, healing, you name it, and found out that I was burning people when I was going over their auras. So I had to investigate that much more. And then I went from that to where I was connecting with people who had crossed over and bringing message through. And, to me, that was probably the nicest gift I think anybody could have ever given me, is to bring, a lot of time you're bringing closer to people.
Right. That's very true. Yep.
Absolutely. I did have interaction with Earthbound as a teenager and stuff. A couple of scary adventures, actually, enough that I couldn't even speak through it. I was so terrified. So I actually did learn white light through my metaphysics class that I took. And I have a very strong protection that I use now for Earthbound. Doing the paranormal investigation, I never thought in a million years I would open myself up to it, because I've been very protective about myself and what comes in and out. I have rules of engagement that I've put in place. But in support of Saraa, and actually my very first paranormal investigation, and I don't even think Saraa realizes that that's a good way to look at it, is because Saraa was having visions in her home at such a young age, I was asked to come in and see what I picked up.
Right.
And I went through her house and I was white lighting. So I was setting up a protection for her home. And I found upstairs that the upstairs had changed, and where their bathroom was a closet that joined two rooms. And I found 3 young girls hiding there. And I said they were hiding because of a fire. And no one had thought that there was a fire there, or nobody had told me about anything. And her mom and dad sort of looked at me and said, well, no, I don't think there's ever been a fire. And I'm like, well, they're hiding in this closet and they also don't want to leave.
Yeah.
But I tried to cross them. And a little while later, Sarah's dad went up into the attic and found charred beams.
Oh.
So the house had actually had a fire at some point. But in support of Saraa, when she took me on board for keeping up with spirit and, spiritual growth, and when she wanted to do paranormal investigations, it was, okay, I'm jumping in both feet. And what I initially did is came in with the idea of helping to debunk, because I still like to be very, very grounded.
Right.
And not everything that squeaks or groans is necessarily spirit.
Correct.
But I come in and she jokes that I'm her chip coffee, because I do not want to know. If I don't have to know where I'm going, I'm happy. If I don't know anything at all about who might be haunting, the history of the town or the building, I actually asked Troy and Saraa not to tell me these things. And then I just go in with my own impressions. And it's been quite a journey. So I hardly ever use devices, and I enjoy it when, Troy hands me an EMF detector or a recorder or whatever. But I am getting more and more comfortable with the equipment, but I still really rely on my mediumship. So.
Right. And that's how I am. We have equipment that we use, but I am my best detector.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people that we use equipment so they can understand what I'm seeing, feeling, or hearing, because if it goes off, then they're like, oh, that's what you were talking about. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I was talking about. So it's kind of the same way as I am my best detector, but we do have the equipment for validation for others.
Yeah, exactly. And it's been amazing, actually, the validation that we've gotten. A quick story. I find that Darlene is not as common as everybody thinks, and definitely not in the paranormal spirit box world. and we were on an investigation. And I was joking because in this particular space, we heard Troy's name. We heard Brendan, who was an investigator with us. We heard Saraa, but I never got to hear my name. And they were off doing a spirit box session while I was sitting in this supposedly really freakish area. And I sort of said, come on, could we have you say, Darlene, like, come on, if you did that, you'd make me feel like a little bit more of a believer.
Right.
And Sarah's son happened to be there. And I walked into the spirit, the session that they were having, and I was like, oh, sorry, I didn't know you were in here. And I left, and within seconds, her son ran in, and he said, the spirit box just said, Darlene, come back. And so I got my validation that night. So it was really, it was neat.
Right. Yeah, that's very good. That's very nice. Yeah, I know my name gets called a lot, Tom. I mean, it's all over the world, so it's not like it's anything new. So, Troy, introduce yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So it's exciting to hear my name because it's a bit unique. So when you get that, it's like, okay, that's probably not programmed that way.
Right.
So yeah, I'm not a medium in any way. I do think, and I'm learning more and more, that I probably have a bit of intuitiveness, I guess you'd say. So I do tend to believe my first instincts and my gut feelings on things. I'm learning to rely on that more and more in the investigating. So I'm a true paranormal investigator because I don't have those other tools as much.
Right.
So I bring to the table all the equipment. I want to record this stuff and be able to show everybody else because that's really at the end of the day all you've got.
Right.
Right. So I think it works well amongst us as well to have that. So I live in Muskoka, Ontario, Canada. So we're just 2 hours or so north of Toronto, Ontario. And happy Memorial Day to all our American friends.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you bet. I've always been interested, even as a kid, loved to hear the ghost stories. Most people do. Love the ghost stories.
Yeah.
Couldn't get enough of them. Read tons of books. Always interested in ghosts and spirits. When I was a young adult, I bought a house at that point. I had a wife and a couple kids, and we were actually living in a haunted house, but didn't know it at the time because it's one of those things you don't always talk about. So we were having our experiences, but never adding them up. So along came one of the first TV shows ever about ghost hunting called Most Haunted, the British-based series.
Yeah. Yep.
And I just ate it up. I loved it. And I was like, holy crap, you can do this? You can actually go out with some equipment and do this? Like, that's me. And that's when I started. So I'm pushing almost 20 years of investigating now.
Very nice.
Yeah. So I've just very recently decided to actually form a group. Beyond the Veil Paranormal. You can find me on Facebook and Twitter.
Or they can find you
right here. Perfect. Right here. Yeah, check it out. So I try to keep, some stuff posted on there. I'm a little slow on that kind of stuff. It's, like everybody, when you work in a day job too, it's hard to do this, but it's such a passion for me. I just get so excited to talk about it all. So that's me in a nutshell. I call myself a skeptical believer, and that really resonates with people because I know there's something there. There's more going on than what a skeptic would ever admit to, particularly a hardcore skeptic.
Correct.
But I don't know what that is anymore than anyone else really. And I will debunk, like Darlene alluded to earlier, that noise, it wasn't, I don't jump to, oh my gosh, that was a ghost. It's like, what was that? Let's try to figure that out.
Exactly.
Eventually you just might have, well, that was weird. I can't explain it.
Yeah. And that's always our first, thing we try to do is whenever we go on an investigation, we always try to debunk it first before we say this is paranormal. Unless it's just something you're seeing with your eyes that you just cannot explain on the spot, you always try to debunk it. My audience knows this, but I'll give you three a little background because we really haven't had too much time to chat. But I call myself an intuitive because I have multiple abilities, but I'm 51. but I've only had them since I was 50. I am a very late bloomer. So I've only been doing this for about 1.5 years. The show is just slightly over 1 year old. And it was, and Darlene, I have a question for you. But it was designed for people who really didn't have a place to turn, who were new, to have a platform to talk on or to learn from. So this is why I bring members on or guests on who are investigators, ufologists, demonologists, cryptids, paranormal, whatever, because that gives them a platform to learn and to ask questions on, so they don't feel like they're alone and they have a place to go to. So with that said, Darlene, you mentioned earthbounds.
Yes.
Can you please explain for people in the audience who, like I said, I do have some newbies that are listening in as well, what an earthbound is?
All right. The way I see earthbound is somebody who is chosen after they have passed away. Either they've chosen not to cross into the light and roll back into their soul,
Mm-hmm.
and remain here in the energy that is physical, even though they're no longer physical.
Right.
So they're still in our plane. They're not necessarily vibrating as high as they would if they crossed over. It could be that they've chosen this, that they were extremely attached to their physical stuff or physical people. It could be that they died suddenly and don't even know they're in limbo, which I actually did a remote investigation. I'm in Ontario and this was in Alberta, and it turned out this person did not know that they were dead. And then there are people who think they're not worthy to cross, that, right. Religion is pounded in our head that, only the people who are sinless or, they're judged here by their peers. So they're afraid to cross because they don't think they're worthy.
Right.
And then obviously for me, anybody who is from the other side is somebody who's rolled back. That spiritual existence is now back with the soul. And, we can call upon them and we can communicate with them, and they can come forward in that particular investigation.
Right.
The lights that were flickering and all the things that were going on was not the earthbound guy stuck. It was actually they were fathers of the couple. And he had come back flicking lights to get attention because he needed help crossing this man over. Okay. And it was a wonderful experience. But there's an example of, just because it's scary doesn't mean it was meant to be scary. It was meant to get help for somebody.
Right. It's an attention getter.
Yeah.
So
that's my definition of earthbound versus somebody who's crossed and on the other side.
Okay. Beautiful. So I have a question. Troy, this kind of leaves you out a little bit. Sorry, but I got a question for Saraa and Darlene. Saraa, are you able to see the individuals? Can you see spirit as well?
I can see spirit through, basically, I guess I'll say, through my third eye. So before I'm doing a reading, it could be a week before I'm doing a reading, I'm feeling, so I'll say my left side up here is female, my right side up here is male, and I feel the energy of a male presence or a female presence. And so they'll kind of show me how they died. I'll start feeling different things, symptoms, and then the moment that we start, it's like, oh, she's showing me that this is what she looked like. And then I start seeing images and pictures, like photographs,
right,
or little glimpse of memory. And I'm the type of medium where I'm an automatic writer. So I need a pen and paper, and I start writing everything down that I'm seeing, because sometimes I say it's spirit vomit. I'm like, slow down.
Right.
And, sometimes it's 10 minutes of a reading, and sometimes it's an hour to an hour and a half. It depends on spirit. Depends on how much I can take on physically. But I allow spirit to come to me. I cannot just pull spirit out of thin air and say, yep. I'm always like, wait until spirit comes and I'll get a hold of you.
Yeah. And the reason I asked that question is because when I can see spirit almost like I'm looking at you, and they will show me in two different ways, and it really, I don't know. I haven't learned why they show me both sides, but they will show me what they looked like in life. And if it was like something that they died of that was an accident or gory or something else, or just a bad surgery or whatever, they will also show me them in their death state. So I will see them on both sides. So I don't know why they share that with me, but I'm wondering how do you see them? Do you see them in their death state or how they died, or do you see them as they were living?
Sometimes both.
Okay.
Sometimes both. It really depends on the spirit. When I was younger, I could see them physically like standing in front of me. And I always go back to that movie with Whoopi Goldberg with the imaginary friend Bogus.
Oh, yeah.
I loved that movie as a kid because I remember watching it as a child going, I know exactly what that's like. Right. That's the one that I resonated with, where people resonate with The Sixth Sense or, the movie Ghosts. But it's when I was younger, I could physically see more and talk face to face more. But as I've grown, it all depended on how much I wanted to open up and take on. And I've been doing this for quite some time, and I'm still slowly opening up the door to different things. But for me, I see more of the light beings. I see more of white light, blue lights, the flashes. Right. I connect more with my light team on the other side, and then I'll ask them to assist me to show me images of spirit. So I guess I call myself like an earthbound light worker. Okay. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So it's unique in a way, but I'm still growing gradually on how much I want to physically see, where, my older son, he can physically see spirits sometimes. And at 3:00 in the morning, he'll wake me up and be like, Mom, like, there was this woman that her hand was on my brother, Weston. And I kind of woke up out of nowhere feeling like I had to see it.
Yeah.
But I felt calm, and I'm like, okay, asking questions, and it kind of takes me back when I was a child. But it's fun just going through the process as I grow, as I gradually get older, and but no, I can't physically see them like a human being in front of me, like, hey, how are you?
Yeah. That was actually my introduction to them, is when I went on an investigation with a friend. Right. With a few friends actually, and we just went on an investigation, and all of a sudden this lady walks in, and I start talking to her. She starts talking to me, and we had a couple mediums with us. And they were like, "Who are you talking to?" I go, "That lady right there that's passed on." And they were like, "Wait, you can see and hear her?" I go, "Yeah, she's right there." So they said, "Describe her." So I did, and they're like, "What is she saying?" And I said that, and they're like, "How long have you been able to do that?" I go, "About 3 minutes." Like, okay.
Wow. I'm very envious of people who actually see them as almost solid figures, because I mean, in dream state, when I've had a connection with somebody who has passed and maybe doesn't know, or passed and they're on the other side and they're just coming to say hi, I can actually like see. Yeah. In the daytime, like in my wake state, I can't actually say that I physically can see people, but I know I can say to them, I could say to whoever I'm reading, your mother's coming through. She's showing me, I don't know why, but she's coming through as 56. There's an important time for her. I can tell them how she's dressed, but I'm not physically seeing that. I just know it.
Right.
I know that she's squeezing herself into a corner in the kitchen for some reason.
Yeah.
She's showing me 2 pocket watches, and I can describe those pocket watches. A handkerchief, like where to find that handkerchief. Like I can see it, smell it, hear it, almost taste it, but it's never in what I would describe as anything physical. It's always in my mind's eye.
Right. Yeah.
And the only time I've been on an investigation where I've seen there's been 2 times. One was the mist. I was talking to somebody who we were talking about did ghosts exist or not. And I was 13 years old, and the father upstairs was an atheist and didn't believe in anything. And he was the guy I was with we did guitar playing together. And the more we talked about it, this gray mist just filled all around him I couldn't speak. I just was stunned. And he was the same way because he saw it on me. So we
Oh,
both saw exactly the same thing. We just saw it on each other.
right.
So that's the first time I've actually seen what I would call something physical form, except on our little trip to the Bracebridge Library where we were doing a follow-up session for locals. And Troy was working very hard to get all of his equipment set up. I knew Saraa, who was dressed in black, had gone downstairs, and I saw this black mass jot down the aisleway, and I was thinking it was my eyes, so I was doing something funny to see if I could reenact it. And Brendan looked at me, and I looked at him. He goes, "You saw it too." We both saw the same thing, but it
Very cool.
wasn't in detail. It was just this black, solid mass. And I thought, how did Saraa get from downstairs up here and run 1,000,000 miles an hour down that hall?
Right.
But yeah, so I don't get to see what you get to see, but I'm very envious of you as long as you're not scared of it.
I don't know why. I kind of see things a lot of different ways. Sometimes I see them just like I'm looking at you. Sometimes it's through a third eye. Sometimes they don't want me to see them, and then they'll just talk to me.
Okay.
It's very odd. Troy, I got to ask you a question because with you being kind of the sound man, the equipment man, the true investigator that doesn't have. Do you find? Well, first off, how long have all of you been investigating together?
So I have to say too that black mass that Darlene is referring to was right behind me. I didn't get to see it, and I had no equipment up yet to catch it.
Okay.
But they were both right there reacting, so I knew it happened. That was very, very amazing.
Did you feel anything like a temperature change, or kind of get the cockles and the hairs in the back of your neck stand up, or?
Not at all, but
Really?
You know what? I was so intent. We were just setting up we were working with the library to bring in the public and do some talk about the paranormal. So I was just so focused on that, I don't think I would have noticed a train run behind me. So unfortunately, missed it completely, right where I would normally have a camera.
Right.
So sorry. So back to your question then.
It's a two-parter, but yeah. So how long have you all been working together?
Yeah, so I met these two actually just about 1.5 years ago.
Okay.
Totally by fluke, but I don't think things happen. I think things happen for a reason.
Right.
So Saraa had in Orillia rented a space at the Orillia Opera House for us to investigate the building, and I didn't know Saraa at all, but a friend of hers, who's a friend of mine, happened to get a spot but couldn't make it, so gave me her ticket. So I was really excited, and yeah, we met there, and we had we've just hit it off, and we've done a lot of investigation since.
Very nice. So my second part to that is, since you're kind of like I said, you're the true paranormal investigator without getting the senses. Do you find that that stuff messes with you more since you can't sense them? Do you get touched and poked and kind of get the cold chills or anything else? Does it seem to tease you more than it does the others?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, unfortunately, Saraa gets pinched and poked all the time. No, I really don't get those experiences. I've never truly, that I know of, seen a spirit. I've certainly had interaction, had sounds, all those sorts of things. We've had times where I sort of do sense, let's say, a little bit differently maybe in a room than others do, but no, I don't get those experiences, unfortunately. But the interesting part is, of course, as the tech guy, I'm the guy who goes back and does all the reviewing of the footage, audio, video, everything else.
Absolutely.
And it's pretty amazing when you catch something that either, justifies something we were talking about at the time but didn't really know about, or something that comes out of nowhere that you had no idea was there that starts to make sense.
Right.
So we've had some incredible validation in that. Amongst our team, we jokingly call it our hot dog moment. So I'll just tell you this funny story. When we met at the Orillia Opera House, the large place, Darlene happened to take a group down to the basement, which is several floors away. I mean, you wouldn't know they were there. You can't hear anything. We were on the stage, in the stage area, the seating area, getting all kinds of interactions, Sarah and I and a whole crew of people. And at one point, Sarah had the portal going, I believe it was. We had words coming through, and we're all just kind of hearing them and repeating them. And I actually have it on the footage as well, where suddenly we were hearing different words and things come through, but we heard the word hot dog. And that's an odd word. And many of us commented immediately, like we all heard hot dog. And of course, me and my jokey way, I'm like, yeah, I could go for hot dog. That'd be great. Don't know what that means. Let's move on. So quite a while later, Darlene's group joins us back on the stage, and we started talking about kind of the different experiences in the different areas. And unbeknownst to us, I don't even know how, but somebody mentioned the word hot dog. Darlene, do you want to finish the story since you were the one in the basement?
So my group was all about mediumship. So we were exploring with mediumship, and it was a very interesting basement, but we were warned that there was a space. So there's tunnels under the opera house that went throughout the town of Aurelia. Yep. But one of the, in the basement, there was also a door that goes out to the street. And they said, just to warn you, the bus drivers will stop their bus, run in, and use the microwave and that to heat up their dinner. But we weren't told where it was. So I'm taking the group around, and we've done the jails that were down there, and we've determined where tunnels and stuff were. And I came around the corner and opened up the door, and clearly a bus driver had been in there warming up his lunch, because we opened that door and it was rank of hot dog. And I went, oh, hot dog. And I actually remember looking at my watch going, okay, guys, we don't need to go in there. It smells so bad. So we turned around and went back. And I think we were joking around about, we went into this room. Right. And it was stunk of hot dog. And Brendan and Troy looked at me and go, what did you just say? And it turned out what they got was about the same time as I made the comment hot dog downstairs.
It was literally within a couple of minutes. It was like they were being ratted on to us upstairs or something.
So that's our hot dog moment.
That's our hot dog moment. And honestly, it was probably one of the most exciting pieces of what we took away from there, as strange as that seems, because it's such incredible validation. Yeah. So we recently were investigating a senior's home, and we had the same thing happen unbeknownst to us at the time, but I had gone off with another one of our mediums. I don't know what's in this family and what they drink, but they seem to all have medium abilities. So yet another relative, just she and I had gone off to the basement of this building, and we were doing what's called the Estes method. So we had a spirit box going. I'd never met her before. She'd never really investigated before. So this was interesting to her. So I put her on the device. She had earpods in her ears. I put, headphones over top so she couldn't hear me. I even put an eye mask on her so she couldn't see me. I had a handheld camera plus a couple of locked off cameras. And I was just talking to Spirit as she was just saying words she would hear through the spirit box, not knowing what I was saying. Right. And it was actually quite amazing for me to see what was actually making sense. But she's sitting there thinking, and I remember her saying to us after, I hope I didn't look like a total idiot saying all this stuff that didn't mean anything. And it was like, no, it was really spot on. But at one point, she mentioned a name. And I just commented on the name, and it's a name that could be a first name or a last name. And I just, with my camera in my hand, as she says it, of course, she can't see or hear me, I say, oh, okay, I wonder if that could have been the name of a resident here. Just kind of a comment to the ether and to the camera, whatever. And we moved on, never thought about it again. The name meant nothing to anybody. I don't even think I mentioned it. Get into review a couple days later of that camera I was holding. She mentions that name. I hear me on the camera say exactly what I said. Oh, I wonder if that could be a resident here. And I get what I think is an old gruff lady voice that says, yep. And it's a seniors. It's an retirement home for assisted living. So, a lot of people with dementia and that sort of thing. So when I'm in review, I'm just like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So I texted the owner of the seniors home, and it had been formerly a home. She bought it 10 years ago. It was a private home. The people she bought it from. Turns out that's the family's last name.
Oh.
We had no idea. We would never have known. But had I not heard that woman say "yup" to my question that I didn't hear at the time, it just tied it all in. And I think that's an amazing piece. That was another hot dog moment. It was just sort of an amazing piece. And that family that lived there, actually, because there's an apartment in the house as well, the elderly mom lived there as well. We haven't been able to find anything more about them, whether, she passed there or not. That may not even matter.
Right.
But it was an incredible moment where there I was at the time of the session going, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Yes. So really quick, Sarah, yes, I saw and heard that behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I already have spirit in here because that's my portal.
Yeah, I saw and heard it because it was the lights were going, and all of a sudden it's just a stationary light, and I saw it kind of tilt a little.
Well, it's kind of funny because last night, me and my hubby got woken up at 3:00 in the morning, and my door started creaking open and closing. And of course, I'm gonna have spirits in my house, guys, because I'm using portals and I'm opening it up.
Yep.
Silly me, right? Anyways, I'm like, okay, so he's like, I'm just gonna go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Well, I instantly got up really quietly and I grabbed my LED bulb. And so I sat it down and I'm like, if there's a spirit here, can you scare the shish kebabs out of him? So he comes and lays back down, and not even 10 minutes later, it starts going off. And he's like, oh my God, this is a guy's a complete skeptic. Okay, so that was pretty funny. And of course I had to send spirit home. So
right. So back to the black mass that you saw, Darlene, and that was behind you, Troy. And we've experienced weird stuff. So my wife is actually saying, I at first would hear the best things when I was doing my first walk or tour through, and I'm not running anything. So she's learned to at least carry a recorder with her. We put a recorder in our pockets when we walk now. Sometimes I'll just grab a little GoPro camera with me and just randomly take shots, or just let it play while we're walking before we're even set up, just so we have something going. Yeah, that's
a really good idea. And I try to do that now. I try to get the cameras set up as soon as we can. I have a wristwatch that's recording EVPs, but often my son is big into the paranormal too. He's just turning 13 now, and he's such a great investigator. He's investigated with us. He's very mature for his age, and just really great at it. And so he's usually the guy that I give to hold the camera. So he's usually right off the bat trying to record as well, because you're absolutely right. That's when it happens. And
then to also piggyback on what you said before, she says some of our best Estes experiments are some of my favorite investigation memories, because we have had those conversations and the answers coming back are dead on, so to speak. But they're just right there, and it's almost like you're just having that conversation. And we have a recorder going for the validation of it, but that way you can hear it and you hear the other person saying back in the Estes experiment. And that's something that I haven't done yet. I mean, I've been part of it, but I haven't been the one to put on the eye black and the headphones to be the one to do the voices. But it would be interesting doing what I do to know what I would get out of it. See it and experience.
Especially.
It's interesting because the Bracebridge investigation was the first time I got to ask questions. Troy was in the headset listening to the box noise canceling, and that's when we sort of knew somebody was in there that wasn't very nice, and probably all of us had experienced a little bit of fear when the word Satan or demon would come up. And we were saying, no, we're not doing that kind of work. We're here to bring light. We're here to help anybody who needs help. We're here to help the people that are working here. So we were getting that kind of stuff all night. And it wasn't until Troy was in noise canceling and listening to Spirit Box, and I started asking questions. And Troy said he heard, I believe, Troy, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he said help. And I said, do you need help? And he said, it was a female's voice. And I said, if you need help, I'll cross you. And I think Troy came out with Satan or demon again. And I'm like, if you're stopping her from going, and I won't say the word, but you can extend it in your vocabulary yourself. But Troy said, F you.
Right.
And he said it in a gruff voice. So I was being told to F off.
Right. Yeah.
And so that sort of, I want to be in noise canceling and try that.
Yeah.
But I also want to do it as a medium. So I'm not hooked up to a device, but I'm totally noise canceled out.
Yeah.
And I just get what my head says to deliver. To finish that little story off. So I bound him in white light. I crossed her. And I told him he could go too if he wanted to. And if he didn't, I was leaving him like that. So when we went back the second time to actually do our first session with the public, I was walking in there with protection spray. And I was like, I have no idea if this guy's still here and how angry he's going to be with me.
Right.
But I didn't pick him up on the second or third visit. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. And
it's interesting, Tom. Sorry, I'll just add.
Yeah.
To be the one listening
to
the spirit box and oblivious, you don't know what's going on around you. You almost want to have a little peek out to make sure everybody's still there, right? And are not playing some pranks on you. It is strange because all you're doing is saying what you're hearing or thinking you're hearing.
Yeah.
And so when you later start talking or review the footage and see it actually gelling in with the conversations, it's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, I would be very interested in being the one that's underneath with listening to the machine, because I think the way I am, hi Janet, I think the way I am, it would set off not only from the machine, but it would also kick off my psychic abilities that I feel from them too, and I would connect with them through both ways. And I think my reaction would be. I honestly don't know what the reaction would be. It would depend on what the comment was. But if the comment was something like you had, Darlene, I am not a shy, quiet, timid person. And sometimes I have a tendency to fire back, so to speak.
Yeah. But I had to gather myself. When he told me to F off, I really had to gather myself and go back into fight mode. Like initially you have that flight instinct, and then I went, no, I'm in charge here.
And that's how I am all the time. I am. It doesn't matter what I'm into. I am always the alpha. And that's just how I set how I set myself. And it's, of course, what I did in life, before I did this, when I was in my prior job, I was always the alpha, so it's just kind of carried over now into spiritual. I'm still kind of that way, especially when it's confrontational. I don't really back down from a whole lot. So
one of the things, I love watching Troy and Saraa do that type of investigating where they have noise canceling on. And when I love to watch different investigative shows to see, I don't know if you ever saw it in the United States, but we had what was called rescue mediums. Absolutely amazing, the approach they had on investigating. And their sole purpose was to cross and help whoever needed it. So that's how I investigated. But I watch a lot of these shows, and I watch a lot of these people use Spirit Box and stuff. And they all know what they're coming into. So they know the place, they know the names, they know the history, they know the ghosts that they think they might find. And very often when I'm watching the shows, I'm not actually watching. I'm only listening.
Right.
And it's because when somebody says, I heard the word Stephen, I heard the word David. But Stephen was who they went in looking for.
Right. Exactly.
And so that's why I would say to Troy and Saraa, I don't want to know names. I don't want to know anything, because if you got, and it's great that they do because they fill in the blanks for me, but you can actually hear what you think you want to hear because you've been told that's what's going to come.
You've been primed for it to happen. Yeah, exactly. Because, and I do the same thing. Like we'll watch shows and I'll close my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all. I just close and I just listen. And they're like, oh, it says this. I'm like, that is not what it said.
No, totally.
And I'm like, not even close. And I do the same thing. But we go into places and I'm one of those two that don't want to know the history of it. I just don't. If I know the history of it, it's the very general, it was a hospital, then it was used as this, and then it was used as that. Okay, cool. I don't know who owned it. I don't know what happened there. I don't know anything else. I just know the very general, basic information about where I'm going, but I don't want to know the intricacies because that's what I'm there to figure out. And when we go in, our investigation is designed to hear their stories so we get their stories correctly. The people who have passed, we're looking for their stories and for them to tell us their stories, not for the people living there now to tell us their stories. So it's kind of the same thing. We don't want to know because we want to hear the stories from the spirits and how they're going to tell us, not how the narrator is going to tell us that lives there now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we leave that.
I have to
when
add
we do
to
stuff
this
like that.
too.
Sure.
So a lot of the time as well too, because I am a medium, sometimes I choose to either be the medium or I choose to be the investigator.
Right.
So majority of the places that we do go into, I personally don't know anything about them, and nor do I want to know either. But Troy will be the one saying, I'm not going to tell you guys. We'll talk about it after when I see what you guys picked up. So sometimes when I go in, I will voice out what I'm feeling, what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, and it will be different from what Darlene's picking up. And then we're picking up two separate different spirit, or we're picking up the same spirit. And then we talk about, then we'll sit down and talk about the person that allowed us to go in to investigate and get more information if Troy doesn't know already. So it's kind of nice to go in not always knowing, but if I choose to be the investigator, then I will go in with what I need to know.
Right.
But here in Ontario, we're only so limited on what we can investigate.
Right.
So I hit up the cemeteries.
Yeah.
That's where I like to sit because one, all your equipment's going to work because there's no piping underground or above you.
Exactly. Yep.
So you can debunk and understand that, nope, that's spirit. If there's no wind, you kind of feel the air out. And it's my favorite place to go and sit down and connect because, sure, cemeteries are very creepy to some and they're like, hell no. But to me, it's like super peaceful because I actually don't find them haunted.
Yeah.
You may get one or two spirit in there or you get none.
Right. And that's the big thing we tell people is, why are they going to stay around where they're buried? They can leave.
They don't want to. They don't care about that body anymore.
Right.
That's
exactly. That's old news. Yeah.
The experiences I've had with Saraa, so I've done 2 cemeteries with her. I think that people who have crossed over will come back to a cemetery because that's where people go to visit them.
True.
But I don't think earthbound hang out there.
Right.
No.
I actually found a child in a cemetery that was looking for help. And it just so happened that we had a mother in attendance who had lost a child. And I had picked up that her child had come forth. And I asked her if it was okay if I asked her child to go to this child and cross them over. Yeah. Totally saw him do that. But typically I did see at the last one we did, I did see a gentleman sitting on this bench. So I'm waiting for Sarah's crowd to show up. And I keep looking about 100, let's say 100 yards away. I'll do the American measurement. And there's a bench and there's
conversion, but yeah, a lot of people don't.
Yeah. So about 100 meters, 100 yards away, there's a bench and the sun is still shining down on this bench because I think we arrived around 6 o'clock or something like that. And I kept looking over at it and I was distracted by this bench because I felt there was a man sitting there. Right. And I couldn't understand why he was sitting there. And I knew he was dressed in like a World War I or II outfit, and I was trying to peg it down. Again, it was all in my mind's eye, and I could not, for the life of me. And we were talking about pre-life, like life regression, and how many, how you can meditate through to get some life regressions. And people that I didn't know at all walked in, and she picked up this into this conversation, and she goes, "Yeah, I've done a previous life regression," and she said, I saw in that guided state, I saw chevron marks on my body. And she said, like a tank rolled over me. And she said, it's really interesting. I've always had a thing about World War II. And I looked over at the bench and I looked at her and I said, you and I have to go now. Yeah. And I took her over, and this man, I said, I don't know why, but he is saying sorry. Now she's a nurse in life now. I said, this has to do with World War II. He is apologizing to you. I don't know if he ran you over or what it was, but he wants to say you're sorry.
Right.
Troy, Saraa, and the rest of the group, they were doing their thing. I think, Troy, you took a bundle of people, and Saraa. And I was trying to cross this man, and the light was there. He could go, and I couldn't figure out why. And then it dawned on me, he's not stuck here. He's from there. He came.
Right.
He was there specifically for today.
For that visit, yeah.
Yeah. So I walked away because somebody else caught my attention that I needed to talk to. And Troy, I think you took somebody, was it her as well? You went over to that spot with the spirit box?
Yeah, so a spirit box set it down on that bench, and the EMF went off on the bench where you had said he was sitting. And the spirit box, we got the word sorry again.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So I think that sometimes, and I think our experience at the Bracebridge Public Library as well, and almost anywhere, I get the sense, not being a medium of any type, that sometimes they just know you're there and they come to that spot, whether it's really anything to do with them or not. And I almost picture like you guys give off like the old Kmart blue light special where all the spirits see it, and that's where we'll go. Somebody who can actually interact with us and tell our story or get our message across.
Yeah, I know they will come back there, or they will be there, but it's not like everybody is there that died. It's very random if you catch somebody, or it's for a reason. And I've done a lot with cemeteries, but I've never felt anything negative there. That's always been, that's a sacred place. That's where they go for the final resting place and everything else. So for me, they're very comfortable. They're very calming. I don't have that fear of cemeteries. I have a couple. So Brianna is saying, when I have gone on investigations with Saraa, often I will do the research and withhold this info just to see what Saraa brings forward, and we reconvene after. It's such an amazing experience. So Brianna's reconfirming what you were talking about there, Saraa. And you have a question out here from Nikki, and she is asking you all, what are your favorite type of location places? Prisons, asylums, old houses? Where do you guys like? What's your favorite type of places to investigate?
Everything for me.
Yeah, I think it's everything. Like, we have an asylum here in our hometown. We personally are not allowed to investigate due to government rules right now. But
on that particular building.
On that
they don't ban us from ghost hunting.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Okay.
I have to say though, my favorite investigations so far, I could say, was when Troy and I did the Legion in our hometown. I thought that was super fascinating. It was one of those quick investigations. Do you want to come on in? We're like, sure. We had REM pods everywhere, and every response that we had was just like, we would sit there, the flashlights going on and off to our questions. Amazingly, the REM pods would go off. Troy would say, there's a blue one there, a red one there, red for yes, blue for no, answer our questions. And they would, no problem. And it was just, the staff were like, we didn't even know it was haunted, but we're mind blown right now. And it was really nice because we were able to go upstairs and look at old black and white photos of our veterans. And then I saw some of my family members in there that I had to ask questions of, like taking pictures of, and then realizing those are my great uncles.
Oh, very nice.
But it was interesting because it's a bit of a museum in there too. So I
Right.
really liked it. It was a short, fun investigation. I'm hoping we get the chance to all go back again and really do an awesome investigation. But to me, I like to help people. Home investigations, I really like too. And I feel if we can make peace for a family, then so be it. And then if we can make peace with the spirit and the family, and if spirit doesn't want to cross, hopefully they can understand that it is the person's home, and to respect and
Right.
to show the homeowner how to manage their spirit. And but I do destination fear. Like, I'm good for a good challenge.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I have to let this just be known now. I don't know if it's for one of you three or someone in the audience. I don't know. I just have to ask. You don't have to tell me yes or no right now. You don't have to bring it up at all. But I have a name stuck in my head that's been driving me nuts for like the past 20 to 25 minutes. And I need to know at some point who Clark is. So just so we know, there's someone out there whose name is Clark, and they're driving me nuts. And I don't know who it's for. But
well, Tom, I see an awful lot of Superman paraphernalia in the background, and that's
yes,
Clark Kent.
That is Clark Kent. Yes.
Actually, it's funny that you say that, Troy, because when you said Clark, I thought Clark Kent.
Yeah. No, I know that's back there.
I can't see what's in the background of your place, but that's the name that came up. So
yeah, I'm a big Superman fan. So that was actually.
I'll mention a name that I've had since we've started is Elizabeth. There's an Elizabeth that's been
kind of hanging out. Yeah. I have a Clark that's kind of letting me know that he goes, just say my name. And I'm like, okay, so I'll just say your name.
That's interesting, eh?
But he started about a half hour ago, and I was like, okay, so we'll just let that one go. But
yeah,
you know, you were asking about favorite places to investigate, and I jokingly said anything. I'll be honest, I love to actually go on site with Troy and Saraa. To me, that's a really unique situation. But I think the favorite thing that I do is remote investigations.
Oh, yeah.
You know, where families are in need now and there are young children involved. That's where those are sort of my favorites, because I feel sometimes I also feel like we shouldn't go physically there. So sometimes I'll say, let me do this one remotely and just see what I pick up and see what we can do. The one out in Alberta, that was quite unique. The other medium was also in Alberta, but we weren't at the home. So those are sort of neat, because to me, I think I really get to tie into, I don't even know how to explain it, but you really have to use your mediumship. You really have to trust yourself.
Yep.
And it's like plugging in. So this other lady's name is Stephanie, and when her and I are doing a remote investigation, it's like we're plugged into each other. She says something and bang, 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 I've got something. And Saraa and I do that too. Very often, Saraa and I will do a reading, and she'll get something and then I'll get something, and all of a sudden we're sort of adding to what each other's getting. And it's almost like we become a superpower together. But I think the remote investigations are the most rewarding for me. Yeah. I think doing live ones anywhere where Troy and Saraa want to do it, I just like that technology component to it. So yeah. I'm pretty open. How about you, Troy?
You know, just the haunted places. Those are my favorite. But just in what you were talking about, it did make me think about kind of the same thing. Saraa and I investigated. We had a family come that was quite concerned, had young kids that were very afraid of some things they'd seen and experienced. And so we investigated the home. And I mean, I'll be honest, we really didn't come up with a lot of answers in one quick investigation. I mean, sometimes it's going to take a while. But I think we were more effective than we knew at the time too. And that family really seems to be pretty comfortable now. Sometimes it's even just a matter of talking about it and you know, helping them understand what it could be or how to react to it. And this is your home. let it know that.
Right.
And they, I think, Sarah, like I think they're doing a lot better than they were.
Yeah.
That's good.
Like there is a little boy who wouldn't sleep in his own room.
Yeah.
And, he does now, or at least last we talked to him. So that's very gratifying.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
Yeah. But I will tell you, one of my, Tom and Sarah, both of you talking about the peaceful cemeteries, one of my absolute scariest moments was in a cemetery at night. I was with 4 other people who were all way over on the other side of the cemetery because 2 of them were leaving, and so they'd walked over to the cars where we'd parked them. I was standing there alone, and I had something run up at me right off to my left, and it was heavy. Like it had to have been a person. Like that was, I turned, I'm like, what the hell? Like, who didn't I notice is here? And there was nothing there. And that really freaked me out.
So surprisingly enough, there is something that I haven't brought this up before ever, but I've had a discussion with one of these beings. Elementals, surprisingly enough, are very fond of cemeteries, which is odd, which is very outside of their realm, because normally when ground is disturbed or something is disturbed that messes up with the environment, they don't like it. But they have a complete understanding about why cemeteries are there. So even though the ground is being dug and it's interfering with their environment and everything else, they completely respect the fact that what our customs are for burying people. And they actually are very protective of the cemeteries. So if someone is there to vandalize, desecrate, do anything else, they may have to deal with an earth elemental. And that's something that some people don't realize, is that earth elementals do not only have to be right in your physical presence to make you pay for what you've done. They also have an ability to kind of, it's almost like I don't know the best way to describe it, but it's almost like they can cast a form of karma on you for a later time for what you've done, for desecrating a cemetery or something else. And down the road, it's almost like a curse. That's something that you've done something, you're going to pay for it later. And elementals have an ability to do that. And so an earth elemental in a cemetery would not surprise me if that's what ran up on you. And not simply because you were doing anything, but just because that's where they're at. And they are very heavy and they sound very large. They are when they're in areas. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So it makes me think of something, Roy. So there's a place that we've investigated, at least Troy and I, and if you look at this building, you would say it does not make any sense whatsoever that there would be anything in there. And Troy's been in a few times, and after we investigated about a month or so ago, I just got this awful feeling something was getting bigger and stronger and whatever, but I can't put my finger on it, and it wouldn't come around when I was there. It only, like when I left a room, it seemed to make itself known. And I said to Troy, let's not investigate there because I don't know what it is, but I know that the earth isn't right. There's something about the earth. I said, I have an Indian chief who is saying this is wrong. Everything here is wrong. It's not right.
Yeah.
And so I said, I know that the earth isn't right here. There's something wrong. I know that there's been accidents, and Troy filled me in why I would pick that up. But whatever this thing is that I think Troy's more sensitive to, I just haven't been able to put my finger on it. And now that you talk about it, I just wonder if it has something to do with an earth elemental.
It might. Luckily that's one of the other abilities I have, is I can see all the different elementals like I'm looking at you, just like I look at spirit. They talk to me just like they're human. And I can see them plain as day. So it's kind of interesting to come across them every once in a while when they want to make themselves known and let me know what's going on in the area. They're a great form of information, especially for investigations. I've learned that, to really kind of look into them, and if they're around, to kind of tap into them, and they'll tell me, hey, this is what happened. The earth was scorched by here. This is where there was something that died here. And this is not a good land, or stuff like that, whatever. they have a tendency now to, I think they're learning to trust me more because I have those conversations with them, whether they're internal or out loud, and they have an understanding that I can understand them and I appreciate them. So I think they're learning to talk to me more. So that's something, if you, Darlene, I think that's actually something you're able to do if you tap into it. I think that's something that you'll be able to do if that's something you focus on. If you choose to focus on it, I think that's something you're able to do.
Well, it's interesting. It just hit me all of a sudden when you were talking about elementals, and it's like, I wonder if I went back into that space and I sat and had a conversation with it, whether or not I could calm the situation down and but like I said, I sat with Troy and his son for, I don't know, Troy, we must have been in there 15 minutes or so. Nothing. I said, you know what? I'm going to leave because I have a way of stifling activity sometimes.
I do too. I have that same thing. Yep. And
I left and I went to the command room that Troy had set up. So I just started watching the videos, and it was like, heck? His son gets up and he sees something, Troy's sensing something. I'm like, I was just in there.
Right?
And the other medium went in there, and I saw her feel like she got touched, and I'm like,
right?
Like what? Right? But it was after we left, after Troy shared something with me, that I went, this thing does not like what we're doing, but why?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And there's a lot of, from what my discussions are, a lot of, I don't want to say a lot. I've been told, I mean, I'm trying to give you a percentage that they would kind of come up with, but 5 to 10% of what you would feel is a spirit is actually an elemental. And you just misinterpret it for what your area is. Maybe lights flicker, but it's not, and maybe it's not a spirit. Maybe that's just, an elemental that's using the energy to get your attention or something along those lines. So it may be something different than what you're anticipating or what you're thinking it is, but you just never thought that way because they're not something you come across every day.
Yeah.
But they're all around us. They're very prevalent in our daily lives. Just look around and pay attention. You'll see them. Maybe not physically, but you'll sense that they're there.
I have a question for you, Tom.
What's that?
So obviously you believe in elementals, and I think Troy and Saraa, you're comfortable with those entities as well, right?
Yeah,
okay.
It's certainly a possibility. Absolutely.
Yeah, we've talked about, are they something that's just beyond the veil? That's why I love Troy's name for his group.
Yeah.
Yes or no? Demonic? Yes or no?
Absolutely not.
Same here.
They are very black and white. If you mess up, they'll let you know. And that's why a lot of people think they're evil, because you've messed with something that they cherish and protect. So if you do that, you have done wrong as far as they're concerned. Even if you haven't, but in our standards or our qualifications, we haven't. But they don't see it that way. They're like, you done screwed up. I'm going to make you pay for it. And then they're also very much on the other side, to where they're very appreciative of I want to say offerings like plants and rice and stuff like that for the earth elementals who go, you're trying to make this a better place. For people who understand that, hey, you're trying to do your best to purify your water, or you're trying to make the streams clean, or you're trying to do this, then the water elementals are very happy as well. And then, so there's a lot of different parts of it, but if you're hurting it, it's going to hurt you back. That's what they're there for, is to protect and to heal and to take care of. And if you don't do it right, or if you go against them, then they're going to seem very evil, because that's them making you pay for what you've done wrong.
Yeah.
So I do want to ask a couple of people over here have made comments. Janet says, yesterday my daughter was seeing a shadow in my room. So Janet is talking about that. And then right after that, Jeanette follows up with, yesterday my daughter was in my room and she's seen a shadow. She was scared and she woke me up. So back to back, that was 8:08 p.m. and 8:09 p.m. Those comments came in. So right away, not 8 minutes ago.
What I would ask anybody is when a child or even yourself, when you see a shadow or our first response is typically fear.
Right.
But if you changed your first response to, who do I think this is?
Mm-hmm.
Very often because we're all intuitive,
Mm-hmm.
you would probably get an answer. So is this my father coming through watching over my child? Is this, Aunt Ingrid? Like,
Right.
we jump to fear so quick that we think it's so negative, when in actual fact, it could be a loved one who's just come.
Yep.
And, we're all gifted, whether, we're open to it or not. And you can't see ghosts without being gifted, is what I say to people.
Right.
You have to have some level of intuitiveness to pick that up. So what I would suggest is, in the case of the kids and that, just sit them down and say, who do you think it might be? If there was somebody we loved in this world that has passed away, who do you think it might be?
Yes.
It may be not dads come over to watch my kids. It could be an ancestor who has taken on guardianship for that child.
Right.
So always lean on the side of, it's probably something wonderful and beautiful, not mean, scary, and demonic.
Right.
Because you'll fear yourself into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, not all black shadows are entities. And that's the first thing that we think of is this a scary thing? But sometimes their energy is just strong enough to present what they are. And it could be very positive. And I don't like to just go towards demon, because if there's a feeling.
But that's TV for us. That's
putting
that into us. Yes.
That's what gets ratings. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. That's kind of what pushes us that way. So
yeah, and I've often told people the same thing. It's that door slamming still could be grandma, because it's all she can do to get your attention.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We had, in fact, I'll tell you, in our house, my old house, we installed a new fan and light in our bathroom, and it's one of those fans that's a humidity sensor. So if you click the light switch twice, it'll only go off when the humidity gets to a certain rate. But if you click it one more time, it will just run all the time. And my wife and I would leave the house, we'd come back, and it's just running, even though we have it set to only go from a certain humidity. And this is before I was fully open. And one of our friends was like, well, and we were like, oh, whatever spirit this is, you need to get out. Stop being so mean. And it turns out it was Nikki's grandmother just giving us a sign that she was around by turning the fan on and off and letting it run to say, hey, I'm here. Hi, this is me. But we had to have someone from the outside tell us what it was, because neither one of us had the abilities yet. So, so it was interesting that we instantly went to a negative entity that was trying to get our attention or trying to do something to us, because that's just how we've basically been programmed through TV and through, different models. So,
Tom, I say to people when they ask about, well, I do vendor markets and shows, and the first thing people see when they see paranormal is, ooh,
right.
Why would you do that?
Right.
And you have to explain paranormal as, well, how do you see it? Because I see it very different than the way you see it. And I always tell people, if you decide you want to go into something like this, you need to do your research, and you cannot show fear or have fear, or you can't do it, because the moment you open that door, you got to learn how to close it.
Right.
You got to learn how to talk to spirit. You got to learn how to have the respect, the love. You got to share that light energy. You have to have the connection, because it's a passion. And then if you don't have the passion, you're just scared shitless.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that. So Sarah, like people come up to you and they have conversations with you. And the one thing that, I'm always saying to people, any one of us can investigate, all of us have intuition, but that doesn't mean everybody should put on their investigator's hat and go out with a recorder and start investigating.
Right.
Because, if Earthbound decides, whether it's an elemental or it's just Earthbound spirit or whatever, that they like your company, and you haven't done an opening prayer and a closing prayer, and it doesn't have to be religious. The prayer that I use is, the universal love, it's a combination of religion and spirituality, just to cover all of our bases. But you need to investigate with an opening and closing prayer. You need to investigate with protection, and you have to engage your terms as far as their engagement with you. So I always say, what are your terms of engagement? What do you want to, make sure you have your rules, you make it firm, and that way you protect yourself from bringing something home. Like, I won't touch an Ouija board, won't go and do anything in an investigation. If any of you is bringing a Ouija board, Darlene's not going to stay in the room.
Right.
But, we can all investigate if we want. We all have intuition, but we shouldn't just take it and say, hey, I'm just going to go and try this on my own. You might actually end up in trouble.
Yeah.
That's the problem. That's the huge problem, because we've run into people like that. Oh, now I'm cursed, or now I have something in my house. And it's just like, well, why did you open that door if you didn't know how to close that door? This is something you can't joke around. It's not for fun. It's not a game. It's not for play.
Correct.
It is for spirit communication and helping spirit or helping the sitter.
Troy,
Troy,
wasn't it, and we won't mention anybody's name, but in Bracebridge, I know there's another paranormal investigation group, and I thought I heard at the library that they came in and they were really gruff and rough, or we heard that this other group was really rough and gruff with the way they investigated. They did a lot of taunting in that. And I know one of the people that came, I think on our third evening, couldn't say enough about how we investigated and approached, because they said, it's all loving, it's all of the white light, you guys have these beautiful prayers, and their only experience was with a group that investigated by taunting, and there was no love and light in it. But I don't know, Troy, do you remember anything about that conversation?
No, not really. But that is how some groups work, right?
And one of the big things that we realized on investigation is, if we're following an aggressive group, the activity is aggressive against us, because that's what they've dealt with. And it's hard to turn them back to, we're coming in with love and light, and we just want to hear your story, and we just want to share in the experience, and we're not going to be aggressive like that last group was. Not all groups are the same, but sometimes they get so aggressive, and that's the last thing they dealt with, and that they turn on you in the investigation that you're on, because the last experience the spirits had was a bad one.
Yeah.
So
I always say, treat spirit the way you would want to be treated. We treat spirit because they were human. We are all spirit. I don't want to be bullied. I want to be treated fairly, and I go in with that same respect. Even when I'm doing my portal sessions, I come in with, I'm going to treat spirits as family, and that's where the connection comes through, because spirit communication comes with your connection, comes with your inner light. You have to give light to get connection. You have to get their light. And the more that you share the love, the more they want to communicate with you.
Right.
If you don't share the love, you're going to be dealing with a negative spirit. And I don't want to deal with a negative spirit, because that is not my vocabulary.
Right.
The other thing, like I'm mentoring somebody right now who's just getting into paranormal investigation with their skill. And they reached out to me and they said, I swear I have an entity that's attached to me, and I have not been able to utilize my gifts. I have been demotivated. And immediately I said, oh my goodness, you did an investigation and you used your white light. And they said, what do you mean? And I said, when you investigate, you have to bring you have to charge yourself up, and you have to use the white light of the universe. I said, you investigated, you weakened your own protection, and this thing is latched on.
Yeah.
And so, I worked with them, and they set their terms, they've charged themselves up. And I said, but please don't go out there, do what, because she's extremely gifted. I said, don't do what you do without the white light of all your army that stands behind you.
Right. Yep. Okay. Well, we're about an hour, 25 minutes into it. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show. But before I do want to show everybody these. So I actually went out, like I said, I am very strong as far as Facebook stalking. That's just what I call it. If you want to know where Beyond the Veil Paranormal is, right here, that's Troy Hunter, the guy sitting right next to me over here. Here's his Facebook site. It is right here below. So feel free to go out there, like, follow, share. Saraa has two things. She actually has the spiritual growth on Facebook, which is right here. So go out there and follow, like, follow, share this as well as you have on YouTube and Facebook, Keeping Up with Spirits.
Yes.
And so all this is out here. I know I just clicked on the buttons really quick, and people probably don't have a good chance to write it all down, but I will let you know that in the comments at the beginning of the show, I copied and pasted all of these in the comments. So anybody who has watched this or anybody who is going to watch the recording, look at the comments and you can actually go find all of these sites for Troy and for Saraa. And Darlene is part of Sarah's kind of the admin part of it as well as one of the investigators. So she's the background of that as well. So you can go out there and follow all three of these wonderful people. I would highly, highly suggest it. Go out there, look at the pages, and just get to know them better and ask your questions. Do whatever else. Jason, thanks for showing up, brother. We're just about to close down, but I'm glad you showed up. Go back and watch the recording. But yeah, go out and follow Troy, Darlene, and Saraa. Get to know them better. Follow along with what they're doing because I know they have other stuff coming up in the future. And just follow along like I'm going to. But other than that,
I will mention one more thing to everybody. Yes. So the month of November, Darlene and I do on spiritual growth. It's called Give and Receive a Reading. If you want to open up your abilities to spirit and become a medium, or you think you are a medium and you need some help on that, we do this for free. We pick a certain amount of givers and a certain amount of receivers, and you get to channel people's loved ones so you can move forward to work with your abilities better as well. So it's a big hit on spiritual growth. So come join.
Yeah, beautiful. That is fantastic. That's really great that you guys do that. So thank you for coming on. I'm going to kick you guys backstage so I can kind of close the show down, but please don't leave because I do want to talk to you for a couple of minutes afterwards. But thank you for coming on. I greatly appreciate you sharing all your information with us and all your stories with us. That was fantastic. I can't thank you enough for being on. And I will talk to you all in just a second. So everyone say good night. Good night.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, everyone, that's my show. Next week, I do not have a show. I am actually going to be traveling. Going to be taking a small hiatus for 1 week with my wife. We are going to actually be going to South Lake Tahoe to recharge. But the week after that, I am on, and you know me that I never pay attention on who's my show beforehand. So let me pull out my handy dandy phone and go out to my guest list, and I will let you know who's going to be on after that. It looks like on the 12th of, holy cow, you guys got to show up for this one too. 12th of June is going to be Joe from Hawaii. So we're going to be bringing on Joe. He's going to make me try to say a whole bunch of words in Hawaiian that I'm not going to be able to say because that's just the way he is, but it's going to be a fantastic show. We'll learn a lot about his culture and how he investigates out there in Hawaii. It'll be fantastic. So please, everyone, have a safe couple of weeks. Stay safe. And I want to see you all in 2 weeks on the 12th. Other than that, much love, and I will talk to you all soon.